Well, hello. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, what I do is I watch a movie and I sit down and I talk about it. One take immediately following the film, no jump cuts, none of that crap, completely raw and natural. If you're into that kind of thing or find it somewhat interesting, awesome. If not, I don't blame you for getting out of this video. Anyway, what I watched today, Ravenous. This is one of those films that I don't feel is talked about as much as it probably should be. It's essentially a Western horror, I guess. That's what it's described as. It takes place in like the whenever the Mexican-American War was. In that time period, in like the remote California rugged wilderness and whatnot. So it's not a Western in the sense of cowboys, but the same general time period. So yeah, we're not dealing with the Wild West. Anyway, whatever. Spoiler alert. You know what a spoiler is, obviously. So I will be discussing plot points of the movie in the next part, titled Synopsis, in the timestamp area. There will be spoilers for that. If you don't want spoilers, you can skip ahead to the little timestamp that says thoughts, or skip all the way into the rating just to see if if my rating matches your own. So let's get into it. We are introduced to our main character, a soldier by the name of John Boyd, who is being given a medal of bravery, essentially. He's being promoted and whatnot for his actions during the war. And yeah, they have a big dinner and everything, and everyone's biting into meat and whatnot, and he is looking at the meat and he starts getting like flashbacks of the war, of like dead people and blood and all that stuff that you see in the war. And the meat is pretty bloody too, so that probably doesn't help. Anyway, needless to say, he throws up. Anyway, he has a one-on-one with the general later, and the general says, listen, I know you're not a hero. You're a coward, honestly. But you basically single-handedly captured this enemy base by being a coward and playing dead, and then waking up once you're inside the base. So it would be frowned upon if I, executed you or dismissed you from the military totally. So we're going to promote you, but we're going to send you to this shitty outpost way in the middle of butt fucking nowhere, excuse my language, in the California mountains. And that's where you're going to serve. So that's fantastic. He arrives on site to basically no fanfare at all. He's greeted by a woman by the name of Martha, a local indigenous woman, who doesn't say anything but gives him a blanket. He's given his own room and whatnot. And later he's introduced to Hart, who kind of gives him, the rundown of who's who in the base. So we've got Hart, who's the colonel. He's in charge. He's the head guy. Next in charge is Major Knox, who's a bit of an alkie, which comes into play actually later. And then, obviously, because of his promotion, I'm not sure what rank he is. I guess he's captain, I think. Yeah, Boyd is captain, that's right. So Boyd is third in charge in this whole thing. But then we have Toffler, who's kind of like, he acts as the priest. We've got Cleves. I think they said he was a veterinarian or something, so he acts as like the medic, essentially. You've got Reich. Maybe he was. I can't remember. Anyway. Then we have Martha and Joseph, who are local indigenous people that he basically describes them as they came with the fort. So the fort was captured by the Spanish or something, and it was just, folded into the U.S. military as one of their forts. Because it's already built, may as well use it, right? Anyway, I guess, or not Joseph, George, sorry. I guess George and Martha were living there and whatever, so you're going to kick them out, right? Anyway, Cleves and Martha are sent out for supplies, essentially, leaving the rest of them at the camp. And Boyd's getting adjusted, essentially, but at nightfall they see a figure outside the window. What did I just hit? It doesn't matter. They see a figure outside the window, and they rush outside, and they find this man on the ground within an inch of his life, basically. They bring him in, they warm him up, they clothe him, feed him, etc. And the man introduced himself as Calhoun. He's a Scottish immigrant, I guess, who has quite the disturbing story. So he was in a caravan going whatever direction he was going. And he was with a group of, I think, six people. And it was led by this colonel by the name of Ives, who apparently was a horrible person, terrible guy, who didn't know anything. I guess he's one of those people who just got the position and didn't deserve it or something. Or he doesn't go into detail of why he was an asshole, but he goes into detail that he was an asshole. Sends them down a wrong path. They end up getting stuck and weathered. Like snowfall, the storm doesn't let up, etc. They're stranded. And basically they hole up in a cave. And initially they ate the horses and the oxen, and eventually they even ate Calhoun's dog, because they're running out of food. There's like nothing around. It's winter. There's no fruit or vegetables or anything, obviously. They resorted to eating like their belts and shoes and any leather they had, or digging up roots for like anything they could do. Eventually, one of them dies from malnourishment, which makes sense if you're eating boots. That'd be the grossest soup ever, by the way. Anyway, one of them dies, and Calhoun comes back to camp and sees the rest of them cooking his legs on a fire, the guy who died of malnourishment. And he didn't give in at first, but eventually hunger was too much, and he ate. Anyway, turns out that Ives went a little crazy upon, I guess, consuming the flesh, and ended up killing another member and cooking them, and it was a bit too much for Calhoun. By the time it was just him, Ives, and a woman by the name of McCready, one of his co-travelers' wives or whatever. When it was left to just them, Calhoun had enough and he took off in the night, I guess, just escaped. And he feels like crap, he's a coward, he should have stayed there and to defend, Mrs. McCready or whatever. And so right away, Hart is like, okay, well, we're obviously going to send out a search party. And everyone's like, what? He's like, that's why we're here. We're here to, like, protect the people. And, I mean, we don't see a lot of action. And the one time we have an opportunity to do something good, let's do that something good. So, good on you, Hart. They get a little search party together. So Hart, Boyd, Toffler, George, and Reich go off. And Calhoun is getting his jacket. And Hart's like, what are you doing? He's like, well, you're not going to have a very easy time finding it. I'm going to come with you and I'll, get you there. I remember where it is, etc. Hart's like, okay, that actually makes sense. That's very brave of you. Thank you for coming along. Anyway, they're traveling, and Toffler ends up falling, and rock cuts or punctures his stomach or something, so he's brutally injured. So they're kind of dragging him along. I guess it's slowing him down or whatever. But he's able to walk, he's not, out of commission or whatever. But they get to this cave, and Calhoun starts freaking out. So clearly that's the cave. He's panicking and breathing heavy and hyperventilating and stuff. And so he says, okay, Toffler, you stay with Ives. Reich and Boyd, you guys go into the cave and check it out, which they do. They come in, they head somewhat deep into the cave. They got their little lanterns and whatnot. And they find what looks like a settlement, like a fire and, clothing and stuff. And then they see blood. And they come to a hole in the ground, to which, he goes down the hole. Reich does, sorry. Goes down the hole, and he's looking around, and that's when he finds bones. He finds a skull with hair that's clearly Mrs. McCready. And then he turns, and hanging from the ceiling are half, well, not half, they're more than half eaten human bodies. It's like the skeletons with little tiny bits of blood on them and whatever. And so he's like, okay, what the hell? He calls out, how many did you say were in the party? Boyd calls back down, 6. Like, well, then who the hell's this guy? And looks. And then he sees a uniform and a little nameplate, Colonel Ives. Oh shit. Ives wasn't the crazy one, it was Calhoun. So he yells out, like, oh my god, it's Calhoun, he killed them all, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, before they can get out of the cave to tell everyone, Calhoun immediately rushes Hart and stabs him in the stomach. And George is ready to throw a tomahawk, but he shoots George, and the tomahawk goes into Hart also, because he like lifts him up as a shield. So that's unfortunate. So 2 down, and then he chases down poor Toffler. And when they get outside of the cave, Reich and Boyd are kind of like, where the hell is everyone? Or they see him chasing, I think, Toffler or something. Anyway, they follow him, and they end up finding Toffler's body is like, he's disemboweled or whatever. He's dead, clearly. They're like, okay, are you loaded? Boyd's like, yeah. He's like, okay, let's go kill this son of a bitch. And they head off into the wilderness together to go enact revenge, leaving the 3 bodies. Hart is still technically alive, but he's not going to make it, so they unfortunately leave him. The other's dead, so like George is completely dead, shot in the heart, and they just found Buddy disemboweled. So there you go, good times. Anyway, they chase Calhoun and they find him. Calhoun ends up like chucking a knife. Very good aim and accuracy and power, because it goes right into Reich. Reich falls off the cliff, and he goes to attack Boyd, who quickly pulls his rifle, shoots him. Boom. Calhoun's down. Gets right back up, blood in his mouth, smiling. Okay, what the fuck? Well, I forgot to mention too that upon telling his story, Calhoun that is, George had mentioned the story of the Wendigo, or Wendigo. Explaining like, okay, this guy just said he ate people. That's not, we have a story about that. It's not a good one. And unfortunately, he was correct. Lo and behold, ended up costing him his life as well. So that's not ideal. Anyway, he ends up cowarding out Boyd, that is, and jumping off the cliff face. To Calhoun's kind of surprise, like, okay. He ends up falling through trees, and when he lands, he ends up breaking his shin bone, and his shin bone's like sticking out of his pants a little bit, and it's like, ugh, okay. And Reich's still partially alive with his last breath, is like, you fucking coward, and he like goes to strangle him or something, or maybe it's a vision, I don't know, but anyway, that happens, and he dies. Calhoun goes down to find them, but can't, and he frigs off. Anyway, there's a lovely scene of Boyd biting on a piece of wood and pushing his bone back into his leg and forming like a splint. And then they show him basically healing. I guess it's over a couple of days or something, and hunger hits in, and he resorts to eating some of Reich. Which, there you go. I mean, I guess he figured it worked for Calhoun, right? Although, I don't know how much he believes the whole Wendigo thing at this point, but either way. He eats him. Shows him in the next scene recovered enough to be able to walk. He's not in great shape, but he's able to walk, and he makes it back to the base, and, whatchamacallit? Who's left? Cleves comes out, and he's like, holy shit, it's Boyd. Calls out, Knox and Martha to come out and greet him, and he's treated essentially, and he's settling in. From what he saw is kind of crazy, obviously, but at the same time, Hart's replacement, a new colonel, is being introduced, and the general's there already, and he's introducing this new colonel who walks in, and it's Calhoun, and he introduces him as Colonel Ives. Okay. Clever. Anyway, obviously Boyd freaks out right away. He's like, that's the guy, literally. Like, he had already told them what he witnessed or whatever, this Calhoun guy being the cannibal and everything, and his people, and he says, that's him. He's the one who I just told you about. And the general's like, no, I don't think so. He's like, no, like, trust me. Knox was here. He can back me on this. And that's where the alcohol comes into play, because Knox had been drunk the night that Calhoun had showed up. And he had been in bed until the next day when they set off to go find Miss McCready and Colonel Ives. So he doesn't really have any recollection of the guy. He's like, I remember he had a beard, but it wasn't this guy. Well, it was. And Cleves and Martha were out getting supplies, so they never even met Calhoun. So he's the only one who knows essentially what happened, which is a great place to be in. He says, listen, I shot him. He's got an injury on his shoulder. And the general is like, okay, well, I mean, you're traumatized and everything and whatever, but I mean, I can't just dismiss what you're saying. We have to check it out. So he instructs Ives to take off his jacket and put his shirt down to show both of his shoulders. No wound. So general's satisfied. No issues here. That's fine. Unfortunately, that he takes off thinking everything's groovy. Anyway, it's not groovy, clearly. We have Boyd has a daydream of killing Cleves or whatever, and later there's tension. And there's like a scene where Ives is reading a book and he like closes it abruptly, and it makes like a noise, like a book closing noise, that I guess startles Boyd, who like pulls a knife on him, and everyone's like, "Whoa, calm down, buddy, chill the fuck out." Anyway, later they have a little one-on-one, Ives and Boyd, and Ives kind of tells him like, "Listen, I found Reich. You didn't finish him. Come on, dude." Like, surely, he starts talking about like how, there was like a insatiable hunger and whatnot, and you can feel it too, obviously. And Boyd clearly does, because he had a vision of killing Cleves and eating him, so that's not great for him. You've tasted it, you felt the power. Why are you resisting? Just give in. It's good stuff. I'm completely healed. You saw no scars. You've healed well enough to get yourself back here just by eating not even a full person. You just ate part of Reich, so you're good. Anyway, he's not down. So he lashes out with a knife, cuts Ives' hand, and he's using the blood to tempt him. And Boyd's kind of entranced a little bit looking at it, and he's just going on and on. It's like, come on, give in, dude. You got to stop resisting. There's just no point for this. Anyway, he tackles Ives and is about to cut his throat when the knife goes to his throat, and it's Martha on his back. And Knox comes out yelling, "Get the fuck, what the hell's going on?" He's like, "I'm going to arrest you. That's just, you're attacking a superior officer. That's not going to fly, obviously, right?" So that's what he does. He tends to Ives' wounds and tells Martha to go get Cleves to, arrest him. And Martha can't find Cleves. Wonder what that means, right? Well, she ends up getting into the barn, and all of the horses are slaughtered, beheaded, ripped apart. So she runs to the cabin where Knox is tending to Ives to tell him, all the horses are dead. Everything, all the animals are dead, essentially. And blood starts dripping on her face as Knox is looking at her through the window, and she looks up, and Knox comes out, and they find there's Cleves on the roof, dripping, bleeding, dead. So, obviously, Knox incarcerates our buddy Boyd and sends Martha off to go get the general, because this is not gonna work. We need backup here or whatever. We need to get this guy the hell out of here. We're gonna banish him or whatever you want to call it. All the while, Ives is making some soup, which, lo and behold, I mean, Knox, to his credit, he probably just assumes, well, the horses are dead, he's probably making soup out of the horses. There may as well make as much use of them as you can. But we all know what Ives is cooking, and it's not just horse, if there is even a horse in there to begin with. Anyway. Oh, boy. So yeah, he's cooking, and he goes and talks to... Or no, he calls Knox in, and Knox is tells him basically off, dude, shut the fuck up. So I just wanted to make sure you were alive. Anyway, Knox goes back to the main cabin, and he's like, "Oh, who left this door open?" And he goes to close it, and he turns around, and he's like, "What the?" And you see a blade just cut him down, essentially. And then we get the reveal that was Hart who took him out. So we've got two cannibals, because apparently Hart woke up to Ives, or Calhoun, or whatever the hell his name is for real, feeding him human, and so he's now under the same effects as they are, completely healed. And Hart was always a pretty decent guy, right? So I mean, Knox doesn't kill him, he listens to him. And yeah, he tells him the story. Basically, that's what happened. And now there's like a hunger or whatever. I know you did it too. Like, it's not great. There's obviously some guilt in his voice about the members of the party initially that were killed when they went to that cave the first time. It eventually accumulates in him saying, listen, the general's on his way today, but I need you to do me a favor. You gotta kill me. I can't go on like this. This is just not who I am. The craving is overwhelming. I'm giving in. I don't want to be that kind of a person, etc. So he obliges, and he cuts Hart's throat. Hart dies. Ives sees it through the window. There's a brief scuffle. Ives ends up getting like a pitchfork into him, and he ends up stabbing Boyd multiple times, and both of them are too like pumped up on like Wendigo juice, people power, whatever you want to call it, to be downed easily. So it's quite the scuffle. Eventually, though, Ives is a tricksy one. He just vanishes out of nowhere, and Boyd has this big ass sword that he takes off of a mount or whatever, and I think it was Nox's sword, because Nox had mentioned his sword was missing or something. Anyway, he goes outside and he's looking around and he can't see anything, and eventually he ends up in this building, and from the rafters there comes Ives, boom, and there's more scuffle, and the whole back and forth about just give in, you're one of us now, essentially, you're under the same power, you have the same cravings, all that stuff all over again. But Boyd had planned ahead, because they end up going to a barn, and there's a bear trap, like a giant ass bear trap. I don't know anything about trapping or whatever, but how big are bear traps? Like, this is a big ass bear trap. I don't know, maybe it's a moose trap, I have no idea. Anyway, regardless, Boyd ends up pushing Ives onto the trap and slamming his head on the trigger mechanism, and the trap slams down on both of them. And Ives is like, okay, well, I can't even be that mad, because that was pretty fucking clever of you. So props on that. But the real question is, if I die first, are you going to eat me? Because if you die first, I am absolutely going to eat you. Anyway, they lie there, and Ives is slowly, his life is draining. I guess he got the worse of it than Boyd did, because as his last breath, he's just like, eat, and dies. And then the door opens, and it's Martha. The general has arrived. He's in the main hall, I guess. He sees the soup, pours himself a nice little sample, eats it. He's like, has more, likes it. There you go. The curse is spread, I suppose, whether he knows it or not. Anyway, Martha just looks in there, and she looks at him, and Boyd's dying. Ives is already dead. Forgot to mention there was a scene earlier where Boyd approaches Martha, and like the story had already been told of how he escaped and had to eat someone partially, and he says to Martha in this earlier scene, like, how do you stop the Wendigo or whatever you pronounce it? And she basically tells him, like, you can't. Once it's in you, that's it. You have to die. Like, you can't recover from it, essentially, and you can't just kill one. That's the way it is. You're cursed for life, I guess. So as he's dying, he doesn't eat Ives, by the way, so he dies, and Martha just looks, and she just shakes her head. She's like, you know what? Fuck this place. She takes off, like, right out of the fort. Like, she lost her brother, she lost everyone she, like, was stationed with, so she's just not into it anymore. She takes off. The general's having soup, so he's whatever. Ives and Boyd are dead, and, yeah, that's it. So Boyd he stayed true to himself and didn't eat to get out of the trap, and accepted the fact that when he dies, the curse dies with him. Also, Ives dying can't, like, spread propaganda. Hart's already dead. Doesn't know about the general, though, so that's an interesting little end point there. And that was Ravenous. Credits roll. What did I think? Well, let me tell you, like I said in the intro, this one seems to be slept on a lot more than it should be. It's not like a true slasher horror thing, but the psychological element to it, the whole concept of like Wendigo or Wendigo. Well, how do you pronounce this? Is it Wendigo or Wendigo? I don't actually know, so I'm gonna keep saying both. Anyway, I've always been fascinated with that kind of story. Well, with indigenous folklore in general, I find it absolutely fascinating. But I mean, Wendigo, like everyone knows what that is. Very interesting, very creepy concept. So again, it's not like a flat-out slasher horror. There's no monsters or nothing other than the people that are infected with this thing. But that is way more true to the actual lore of Wendigo than what you see on like DeviantArt and in other Wendigo films. So it's not a creature with antlers and like a deer head. I actually have no idea where that came from. I think I read somewhere that that look was based on another indigenous folklore creature that's like less popular or something. I have no idea, or less known. But the Wendigo is essentially just a cannibal with supernatural senses and strength and durability and healing. That's what a Wendigo is. The more they eat and the longer they live and all that, they get more gaunt and elongated and creepy and whatnot. But like, they're still generally humanoid looking. They don't have antlers. So I don't know where that came from. I actually have no idea. Who first put antlers on the Wendigo? I want to know, because you're messing with what the actual creature is. Does it look cool? Yeah, absolutely. The antler one looks cool, but it kind of takes away from what the actual story is of it, like human losing its humanity, becoming something worse, right? So I don't know. Anyway, that aside, folklore aside, again, always been fascinated with the Wendigo, and it's very cool to see a movie that does it properly. Like how, essentially, for the most part, the folklore, obviously there's some liberties taken, but it's a lot closer than a lot of other films and media portray them. So that's really cool. Huge points for that. I really do enjoy period pieces, so the fact that this was basically in like Western times, but taking place completely non-Western, like in the middle of nowhere in the California mountains and stuff. That's a great setting. The lighting was a little bit, I don't know if it was not whitewashed, but it felt like winter watching it. Like you look outside and you're like, this is absolutely winter. Like there's snow and everything obviously, but I don't know. You know how winter light has that kind of like, a lot of times has like kind of like a whitewashed grayish, I don't know. Anyway, it was perfect. That was fantastic. So cinematography was great. And setting, like I said, was solid. Acting was good. You've got a lot of, pretty decent. Robert Carlyle was Ives. So right there, that's a huge win. Any movie that Carlyle is in, he's always been, I think, one of the better actors out there. You've got, oh my god, it's a good cast. Anyway, I'm not going to go through every single actor and whatnot, but it's solid. They all do their part. Hart, I don't remember the actor's name, but he's in a lot of things. As soon as you see him, you're like, oh, that guy, hell yeah. Whatever. So yeah, that was fine. Story is solid. Again, I'm not going to go into the story because of spoilers or whatever, but the pacing is pretty good. Like I think it's like an hour and 40 minutes or something like that, but it doesn't drag. It's not all action all the time by any means, but you get into it at about the right time into watching the film. So the pacing is solid. I got no issues with that. As far as gore goes, I mean, it's not the kind of movie that would like go gore crazy, but the scenes where there is, again, without spoiling it, a particular scene earlier when they find something, you know what I mean if you've seen it. The gore is good. It's bloody and it gets your gore fix a little bit, but like the whole movie itself is a lot more realistic, not like guts flying out and like people's brains getting smashed open and stuff like that. So it's a very realistic film in that sense too. The way things happen in the movie, you're like, yeah, I could see this being something that happened back then or whatever, for lack of being able to tell you what I'm trying to say better than I actually physically can with words. Really, I have no complaints at all, really. The characters were all pretty solid. They all had their own personality traits that made it easier for me to remember a very large cast of character names. I know in some of these movies that I watch, some of the lower budget ones, you'll have like 7 or 8 characters that are all kind of like throwaway characters. Like, they have their own personalities and whatnot, but not like extremely. But these are all individual people. You can absolutely remember, okay, that was Toffler, that was Knox, that was Reich, etc. Right? So very good on that part. The writing was good that way. Overall, just good. I mean, I'm just rambling on saying the same thing. That is good. It's good. It's good. So should you watch it? I mean, yes. If you're not like really turned off by the whole idea of, you know, what the movie's about, then yes, you should watch it. The first time I saw it, it was surprising how much I enjoyed it by the end of it. Oh, that's something I have to mention. The music. So the score for this film is, I don't even, is it like Uncanny Valley is describing something that looks like a person, but it's kind of off, which makes it that much creepier because it's so close to being a person without being a person, if that makes sense. Well, the music is basically the Uncanny Valley version of music, because you have this, like, I don't know if it's a banjo pick or something, doing like one note for an odd number of notes, and then a second note for an even number of notes. So like, it's not 4x4 music signature, but then over top of it is other music with like period instruments that is, I think, 4/4. So you have an underlying set of music that is a different timing than the other piece. Like, I don't know how to explain it any better than that, but it's off-putting. It's not, the music itself isn't creepy, but the combining of them makes it creepy. Not even creepy, just off-putting. I don't know how else to explain it. It's so good. It works so well. And I've never heard a score like that in another movie, in all honesty. Like, this is very unique, and it's very Ravenous. That's so Ravenous. No, that's stupid. Oh my god. I'm so sorry. That was the dumbest crap ever. But yeah, the score is crazy. It's crazy effective. What else can I say about it? I think I've covered pretty much everything, so let's get into the rating. What am I going to rate Ravenous? This one's going to go pretty high, honestly, because it has so much going for it without being over the top, and absolutely still works, absolutely still keeps your attention. Every time I watch this film, I'm completely absorbed into it. I'm going to go 8 point. Let's do 8 1/4, 8.25. I think that is pretty much perfect. Like, this, I mean, it's not a perfect film, but it's very close. Like, the subject matter is kind of off-putting and whatnot, and, you know, it's very difficult for me to give a 10 to a movie. I think I've done it to like 2 so far in all of the reviews I've done. But yeah, 8.25 is a pretty reasonable rating for this one, I think. You know what? No, I'm gonna go even more than that. I'm gonna go 8.5. That's my final rating. 8.5 out of 10. Ravenous. Absolutely check it out. Just trust me. Even if it doesn't sound like something that's up your alley, give it a shot, because like I said, it surprised me a little bit. I read about it. I can't remember if it was my brother who told me about it or whatnot, but anyway, I was kind of like, okay, sure, I'll watch it. He says it's good. But by the end of it, I'm like, that was actually genuinely good. So, absolutely check it out. And, yeah, we'll leave it at that. Yeah, see you next time. Bye.